Hello, this video is for everybody on Mazda626.net. Got my powder coated. As you can see, it's really nice and shiny. But when it comes back from the powder coating place, there's tons of powder inside. They didn't take off the gaskets, but that's not a big problem. As you can see, that powder there is really fine, coarse powder from the sandblasting process. So I'm going to take that off today so that I can finally put my nice shiny valve cover back on. Got some AJAX, just regular dish soap. It says Super Degreaser, not a big deal. If that doesn't work, I'm going to use some Castrol Super Clean, which has got another degreasing material or chemicals in it. Regular toothbrush to get around all the nooks and crannies, and your regular scotch-brite. I got some cheapies in a pack called Scrub Buddy. I'm going to hose it down first, and hopefully that'll take off a lot of this stuff. But there's some places in here that I'm not going to be able to get into. Kind of worried about that. So let's start. Oh God. Oh God. Okay, I can take off the gasket. Now they baked the gasket, which I thought was going to turn into like a little pool of tar, but apparently the gasket is good stuff and went right through it. Sand that they use in sandblasting is some of the finest coarse sand I've ever seen. Maybe comparable to 2000 grit sand on sandpaper. It's just really smooth, almost like a powder. Now that's not from the powder coating, I don't believe. I think that's actually from the sandblasting. First things first. Just gonna have to hose it off. Now, of course, you're gonna want to let this dry after you're done for quite a while. And now all that sand is coming off, and you can see all the varnished oil that was inside the pan. That's how it looked prior to the sandblasting. It's pretty nasty in there. So that's what the degreaser is for, is to take all that crap off as much as you can anyway. Try and get it running somewhat right. That stuff looks like the sand, I don't know if you can see that, in the water is actually floating up to the top because it's so light. So that's a good thing. And then just keep blasting away. Okay. Of course there's going to be some in the breather hose, so I guess you're going to want to turn that on jet. Why do I have a feeling that was stupid? Well, it's going to get up in there too, so I don't know how to clean that. I wouldn't even know where to begin. That's not cool. Oh, there's screws. How about that? Okay. On the Mazda 626, your air breather hose leads to a chamber in here, and there's a whole bunch of screws you're going to have to take out before you can really get in there and clean it. You can try and spray water in here and in your tube, but you're not going to get all the powder out that's been accumulated in there from the powder coating process. So next step is take out the screws. Here's what it looks like without the air chamber plate. This chamber is for your PCV valve. This chamber and this chamber is for your breather valve. You can see it's got a lot of powder, a lot of crust, a lot of grime buildup in the PCV chamber, more than the chamber for the breather hose. So I'm going to wash that off pretty well. You can see it's caked with oil because the water is beating up. So that's going to need a good degrease. And I can smell that oil too. Now, if you shoot a jet of water into your breather hose, you should see it coming out the inside. So that's working. Now it's really hard to clean that tube. Almost want to flush it with something, flush it with a degreaser or something like that. It would have to be pressurized because there's no way that you can get inside this little area to clean inside the tube. So maybe a wire brush or something. That's going to be difficult. Next I'm going to start scrubbing with soft sponge, some regular soapy water. It's got degreaser in it from AJAX Dawn, worked just as well. Dawn's got a pretty good degreaser in it. And just go after all the small little bits that you can. Use your fingers to feel, still pulling off powder. It's all over the place. This is an enclosed system, so once you put this valve cover back on, that's it. If there's any impurities in there, it could get in your engine, and then you're hosed. That's it. No amount of pretty is going to make up for that. And then we hose it off. You can see how dirty that water is. Dirty. You can see in some spots where it's not beating up versus that where it's drying is beating up, making a little trail of water. You don't want it to beat up. That means that you got rid of all the oil. You want to get rid of all the oil in this process, and then you will put all of the oil back. You'll lubricate this with oil once you're about ready to put it on your engine. You can tell it's starting to get a little bit cleaner, but still at least a day from getting this ready. Here's the bottom part of the air chamber. It sits in that way. Air goes in through that inlet. For some reason this area got a lot of powder in it. This part here, that just looks like beach sand. There's so much sand there. So I'm going to spray that down, and you can, oh, it smells like burnt oil. So I'm going to spray that off and then hit it with the degreaser. Okay, here's what it looks like with all the sand taken off. Looks a lot better. This has got a light coating of what looks like copper. That's from regular oil. That's what the color of good oil looks like, and that's what the color of bad burnt oil looks like. So it's going to take a lot. And as you can see, the back part of that plate is just caked on there with oil, burnt oil. Got a long way to go. So sprayed a little bit of degreaser on here, and as you can see, this stuff is great. Any degreaser will work. It just cuts right through that crap. Yeah. Okay, so about halfway through, I switched to a Brillo pad, and along with the degreaser, and that seems to be cutting it a lot easier. It turns it into this real thick orange gooey mess, and that's when you know it's getting cut a lot easier. And there's no scratching from the Brillo, so I'm not too worried about continuing to use it. It looks pretty good, and it's cutting through it a lot faster. So skip the scotch-brite and just go straight to the Brillo and the degreaser. Brillo pad. Now it's not putting any scratches in here, which is what I was kind of worried with, so I did a little test. Ah, I got a cut. That burns. It'll turn into this orange color. And that's when you know it's really starting to cut through, and the degreaser is mixing with the oil. I did not get it this much sludge when I was doing it with the, I don't know what you call it, scotch-brite. It says Scrub Buddies on the package, which I think is awesome. But just your regular kitchen scrubby thingy. Sounds like a cool name for a product, scrubby thingy. I'm gonna market that. By the way, this thing, the sides of this are as sharp as a sword, I guess. It feels like I'm holding a sword. These edges, if you grip too tightly, would cut right into your skin. It's like a sword blade. You could probably kill somebody with this. Sounds like a shotgun. Alright, whatever. Just keep cutting. Here's the piece after 2 hours. Looks nice and shiny. It's really clean. There's no real big scratch marks. I'm not worried about it. There's a little bit of sludge around the corners. I want to take that off. Make sure that none of that stuff has a possibility of getting back into my engine. I want to take all the sludge, all this grime, including the engine. This took me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do, so the engine itself is at least going to take me 2 days, I'm guessing, 14 to 18 hours of scrubbing, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that to get into all the little nooks and crannies, because they don't make SOS pads the size of toothbrushes, so that I know of. Maybe I'll take a Dremel to it, some of it, I'm not sure. I know I'll go right through Dremel pads if I do that. I think I did find out that this area here, the air chamber, does have a gasket. I'm going to have to look that up. I couldn't see it at first because it's so worn down and so thin of a rubber. Either that or that's just more gunk that I'm able to pull up, but I'm pretty sure that's a rubber seal there, so that's something I did not expect. And I don't think any kind of high temp silicone or anything is going to be a replacement for that, so something I'll look up online. Maybe I could get it at the local parts store. I doubt it. So that's where I'm at. I've stopped spraying this and hosing this down. I can still see some water sitting in here with some more powder on top of the water, so that's not clean yet, to the point that I'm even thinking about putting this thing on. Well, that's where I'm at after 2 hours. Okay, so another half an hour of scrubbing out the little nooks and crannies, and that's all done. It's no longer slick, slippery, lubricated. Actually, it's pretty sticky from all the degreaser, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what to do about the flash rust some places, because you're taking off the lubrication and you're also wetting it using soap and water. You'll start to get rust spots in here, and that's basically corrosion. So the only way that I can think to get rid of that real quick is just to use some motor oil, lube it down, don't let the water get into it. Want to make sure it's completely dry before you put the motor oil on. You will get some tiny little flash rust spots where the air immediately hits it after you dry it. I wouldn't recommend wet sanding it, because that's just going to introduce more metal particles into your engine, and then of course you're going to have to wash them off and you're right back where you started. So just dry it up as best you can, and then put some oil on it. One more thing, it's probably good to wear gloves. My fingers are pruned up. It looks like I've been sitting in a bathtub for about 4 hours. With all the chemicals, the degreaser, the SOS pad, my hands are pretty torn up. Well, not my hands, but the tips of my fingers are pretty torn up from trying to get into all the little nooks and crannies. So I don't think I'm going to be starting on this within the next couple days. I want to try and get my fingers to heal back up before I start going at it again. But on a good point, my fingers are really smooth and shiny. End of day one, pretty much. That's all I got done. That's it. It was on there good. Really caked on there, but this is going to be a very long project.